This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 75, where we're starting off our new coverage of Luke Cage with Season 1, Episode 1, The Moment of Truth.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
Welcome back, Defenders. Welcome to our coverage of Luke Cage. We're back with our regular coverage of a Defenders TV show. And if you haven't watched the episode, we are going to spoil the fug out of it. Yes, fug. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, and I don't curse.
I'm your other host, Chris. I'm going to open with this just very quickly. I watched Michael Coulter. I want his abs. I went to the gym today. I no longer want to be Michael Coulter.
Why,
It's
Chris?
too much. It's too much. I'm never going to have those muscles. Oh, if our listeners could see me now, my every muscle is quaking and is just like, no.
You could do the 30-day shred like John did.
Absolutely. And laughing in the background is one of your other hosts, John, who will hold the sweat in for this series of podcasts. And I think maybe the first one, Derek?
No, it was fug, John. Fug.
Ah, fug, okay. But payments to John of Defenders TV Podcast for all that swearing.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we could probably charge most of the cast a lot of money. This is a very different Netflix show. There's definitely a little more adult content in here than we've seen in the past. But we are here to cover every episode of Luke Cage in our normal format. If you're joining us for the first time and haven't heard any of our podcasts before, the way we cover each of the Netflix shows is that we cover each individual episode with a podcast. So this episode is going to be about episode 1 of Luke Cage. And then the next episode, obviously episode 2, and on we go. We have been lucky enough to get a preview screening of the Luke Cage first 7 episodes. We have them available to us to watch. So we're actually recording on the 24th of September, a couple of days before it goes live on Netflix, which allows us to put the show up the minute after you've watched it on Netflix. So really kind of cool to have it ahead of time this time. So
Yeah.
a huge thank you to Netflix.
Absolutely. And we cover the shows and each of our podcasts, we all pick our favourite or top 5 points, some good, some bad, maybe some indifferent, depending on what the episode or in fact the series is like. And our new episodes will drop on Fridays and Tuesdays each week. We're going to try and get 2 out each week now. So episode 1 will drop on the day of release of the Luke Cage Marvel Netflix series on the 30th of September. So definitely subscribe to us on defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes or any other good podcast catcher. Just search Defenders TV Podcast. Subscribe, leave a review, and of course that will really help other people find out and listen to our podcast.
Absolutely. And one of the other cool things about the show, because everybody watches it at their own pace, you can leave your feedback for us as you go watching through the episodes. All you need to do is send us feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, or you can pop on our website, defenderstvpodcast.com, click the feedback button and record 90 seconds of your thoughts about each of the episodes. I just ask that if you are going to do that, just make sure you mark it with the episode you're speaking about, just because we're going to be, while we are ahead to begin with, we will be behind. Most of our listeners are going to binge watch the 13 episodes of this show. So at least we know that we're not going to be spoiled about any future developments in the episodes.
Yeah. So some of our theories that we might draw out from each of the episodes may absolutely turn to dust. And you will know this, but hopefully it will be a bit of amusement and some good fun whilst you hear us theorize about what may happen. Some of it might actually happen. Others, of course, may just be absolute rubbish.
John, are you trying to tell me that my theory from season 2 of Daredevil, where a giant hand suddenly came out of the hole in the floor, was wrong? Are you trying to tell me?
That was wrong.
Well,
that
hang
was
on.
wrong.
Not to be proven yet. They still haven't gone into the hole. That could be Defenders.
Yeah, but you were right about that with regards to Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, it's
I think I saw the Millennium Falcon, and something
okay.
came out of the hole.
That really old movie.
Yeah.
With the.
What do you mean old movie?
Hey,
It's my Spider-Man.
Just because Tom Collins gets away with it doesn't mean you can.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the same age as Tom Holland. Anyway, finally, before we go into our coverage of Luke Cage, just want to say a huge thank you to those of our listeners who've been leaving us reviews over on iTunes as part of our Summer of Strange competition, or prize draw, really. We will be announcing the winner at the end of the podcast. What we're actually going to do is record that closer to the day of release, because we want to give a couple more days for people to leave some more reviews for that. So the prize draw itself was for 2 Doctor Strange comics, 2 preludes to the Doctor Strange movie, the vinyl pop of Doctor Strange, which everybody seems to love, and we've got one on our desk, which is awesome, and also for a digital code for the first 6 issues of the current Doctor Strange series, and finally a cap, a Doctor Strange cap with the seal of Ashanti on the front.
Yeah, and our Doctor Strange vinyl pop is nodding furiously in agreement here on our desk. So, yeah, absolutely. And we will probably be looking to hold our Luke Cage competition for this series of podcasts. Yeah, so
I don't even know what that is yet. I'm looking
no,
forward
we
to
don't. We don't know what it is yet, but we will do by our second episode.
Absolutely. So stay tuned to the end of the episode where the winner of the Summer Strange competition will be announced. I think it's time to get into our coverage of Luke Cage, a moment of truth.
Yay! Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to getting into to hear all the thoughts of our team here.
There be spoilers, there be.
You suddenly became an international pirate?
I did.
Just checking. It's just like, I know it was International Pirate Day this week, but I'm just pretty sure it's a day, not a week.
And there is the Pirate Party in Germany. No less, yeah. Political party. So there be weirdness, there be. But with that, let's get into Moment of Truth, episode 1 of season 1 of Luke Cage. I am salivating over this, but Derek, can you give us a few little details about who wrote, who directed this first episode?
Absolutely. This first episode was written by Chio Coker, the creator and showrunner for this show. So he's been heavily involved in it, but wrote the first episode. What he's well known for, and one of the interesting points that I've seen here, is that he is the writer of the biopic for Notorious B.I.G. called Notorious. So that big poster that we see in episode 1 on the back wall with the Notorious B.I.G. with his with his crown on, his king hat, I was going to call it, with his crown on in Cottonmouth's Club. That's kind of a reference for Chio Coker's career, one of his biggest hits, I suppose.
Yeah, that great moment where Cottonmouth walks forward and it looks like it's on his own head. He is the king of Harlem. Fantastic.
Very cool. And the episode itself was directed by Paul McGuigan, who's known from the movie Lucky Number 11, and also from many episodes of the TV series Sherlock. So we did about 5 or 6 episodes of that. So quite cool to have him on board directing this episode.
So we have a Benedict Cumberbatch link here, and obviously by reference then a Doctor Strange link.
Nice.
Well, we're on firm ground then.
Excellent.
Hooray.
Oh, John.
Everything leads to Strange. Oh, God.
Absolutely.
Okay, can we just take note? We haven't even gone into the points yet. And he's managed to reference Doctor Strange.
Good,
I'm kind of impressed.
Uh-huh.
So anyone who's started listening, you'll realise I'm a big Doctor Strange fan. And of course, it is slightly relevant. His movie's coming out on the 25th of October, in Europe. So not long left, and that is early November in USA and Canada. So
there is another very strong tie, just quickly, obviously, to Doctor Strange. He is the Defender, so he is one of the main Defenders that started up the Defenders. So not out of character to reference him in here.
But no more talk of Doctor Strange, and let's talk Luke Cage.
Absolutely, John. Do you want to give us the synopsis for this episode of Luke Cage: Moment of Truth?
Absolutely. After the destruction and loss of his bar in Hell's Kitchen, a penniless Luke Cage moves back to Harlem. He takes on 2 low-key jobs, one at Pop's Barbers and the other as a kitchen hand in a local club, as he tries to figure out what to do next, and so as not to draw unnecessary attention to his powerful new abilities. However, Harlem is in flux as rival gang leaders Cornell, Cottonmouth Stokes and Diamondback seek new partnerships and to influence the political campaign of Mariah Dillard. As Luke is forced front of house at Cottonmouth's club, Harlem's Paradise, he encounters Diamondback's enforcer, Shades, that brings back painful memories of his time in Seagate Prison. Meanwhile, an important money exchange between 2 gangs is crashed by Shamik and Chico, both known to Luke Cage. As retribution falls on Shamik and Cottonmouth attempts to recover his money, detectives Misty Knight and Raphael Scarf investigate the series of killings linked to the failed money exchange. and Luke Cage becomes increasingly embroiled in the Harlem scene as an unwilling defender.
So yeah, loads going on there in our synopsis. Setting up a new area of New York here in Harlem. We've spent loads of time within the 3 series so far of the Defender shows over in Hell's Kitchen. Our first experience of Harlem here, and they're really setting up a lot of it with all this wide cast of characters that we haven't seen before.
Definitely loads of interaction between the characters, a real kind of setup here for the audience. And it was really good. It gave like this fantastic flavor of the community of Harlem. Of course, not only the place in New York, but also Luke Cage's place within Harlem, and his environment and the people he is having to deal with or relates to. So really, really cool, I thought, on this, certainly as a first impression.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So before we kick into our top 5 points, Chris, what's your general thoughts overall on the episode? Do you like it? Dislike it? Nice start?
It's tough to read it just on one. So this is very much a setup episode.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think straight after watching it, I tweeted out something along the lines of my jaw was dropping and I was having a little spasm attack because I was just like, It was great to be here. It's great to be at this point where we're seeing this new area. They got very close. I thought it was going to be a huge setup with no payoff. But by the end of the episode, we do get a payoff.
Yeah, yeah.
And the trope hating element of me was like, oh god, this is gonna be a really bad episode, first one, and then like literally it was gonna, like the second and third one where we get, everything would happen.
Right.
It's not.
It's not.
It's a brilliant opening. It all comes together. It's just slower than I think anything we've seen to date from a Marvel Nexus show.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would say rather than slower, I think it's gradual.
Yeah.
I think it's like,
yes.
It's kind of introducing, it's the politics with Mariah Dillard. There's the whole Harlem community, that melting pot, the different cultures that are in there. There's the gangs. There's obviously Luke Cage, but it's the cops. It's all of those things. I love the idea that there's the political element in this. You very much had the legal aspect with Jerry Hogarth and Jessica Jones, and obviously in Daredevil, and you had this whole aspect of the courts and the district attorneys. Here, we're really seeing the politics led by Mariah Dillard and this kind of murky association with some of the less salubrious parts of Harlem with regards to the gang leaders and them trying to buy that kind of influence and so on. Yeah. I really like that, and that's definitely a huge gradual build up. So I would definitely agree with Chris.
And for me, there's something about this first episode that makes Luke Cage feel a lot broader than Daredevil and Jessica Jones. There seems to be a bigger cast of characters around him. There seems to be more of the outdoors and more of the city that are being shown. It doesn't feel like a huge amount of interior moments. There's also a lot of exterior work with Maria Dillard when she's going on the campaign trail almost. So it does feel like we're seeing Harlem as filmed for this show, rather than there being a lot of interior discussions in offices a lot, which was what we were seeing in Daredevil and Jessica Jones. So I'm really intrigued so far. It really set it up really well for me so far.
The one thing I'll say, and I think like we can move on now at this point, is that it is a different show. They have not done Daredevil in Harlem. They have not done Jessica Jones in Harlem. This is as unique as probably anything that the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Marvel Netflix universe, depending if they are connected or not, depending on that.
Yeah.
This is the most unique.
Definitely.
This is, depending on which it's a step to the left or step to the right, and no matter what, it is a new show. It's a new direction, and it feels good.
Yes, yeah, totally.
That, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Absolutely.
Totally agree. And I think that leads me on to my first point. It's a new direction for our podcast almost, because I think this is going to become my first point in every episode. I have mentioned in our kind of lead up episodes to Luke Cage that Chio Coker was a former music journalist and has brought that idea of music to the show of Luke Cage. Two of my points are going to be referencing music in this episode, but the number one is about the name of the episode, which is Moment of Truth, taken from the Gangstar song of the same name. So what I've done is had listened to the lyrics of the song and tried to see if there's any connections in it to this episode of Luke Cage. What do you think, guys? Good idea? John?
Sounds good.
I might need the swear jar for this. So, so the main lyrics in this song, Gangstar's Moment of Truth, are, it's lonely at the top and whatever you do, you always gotta watch around you. The same shiesty cats you hang with could be the same ones to wet you up. So the meaning of that really is that when you're standing at the top, like Cottonmouth seems to be here, you got to watch everybody that's around you because someone could turn on you at any minute. So I definitely think that's a reference to the fact that Cottonmouth is trying to further his business within Harlem, and the people that are actually sabotaging that are people that work with him or work for him or work around him. So he's got to keep a real strong eye on all those people that work around him. One of the other things that I thought was interesting is right towards the end of the song, there's the line, no one is untouchable, no man is bulletproof, we almost meet our moments of truth. Which is interesting because our main character here is a bulletproof superhero. So nice choice there, Chio Coker. I have to say that. A really good choice for this first episode. I'm going to see throughout the rest of the season, all the episodes are named after Gangstar songs. I've got them all up on a playlist over on YouTube, so I'll be picking out, see if there's any connection between those songs and the lyrics and the episodes as they go.
Absolutely.
Music seems to have a very huge presence, but also thematic kind of element to this show.
Definitely.
We see Cottonmouth's kind of club,
Mm-hmm.
or Mr. Stokes, excuse me.
Don't call him Cottonmouth.
One of the opening scenes we see of his club is with this other musician. Then there's obviously the Notorious B.I.G. reference, and obviously the titles. I'm hoping that this does continue. We know that there was a featurette saying that this is quite, music plays an important part, but they say that about everything. So I'm hoping that this actually does continue. Like, will we see, like, Pharrell Williams just kind of slowly walking by doing a song?
There's a few.
We don't.
There's definitely a few, and it's one of my points for later on, so I'll save it a little bit.
Okay.
But I know we have Faith Evans coming up on the show in a later episode. She's going to be doing a live performance, so there's definitely going to be that involvement. The people that are doing the music for the show are former members of a tribe called Quest, so some really heavy involvement from many musicians in the show. And as I say, with Chio Coker's background in music journalism, it seems like he's kind of drawn on that for his career. Really, his biggest movie being Notorious, about Notorious B.I.G. That's kind of the background he comes from, and it seems like he's bringing that to Harlem because Harlem is well known as being an area of New York where a lot of music has been coming from all the way back to the 50s and 60s, all the way up to date. They've always had a really strong music feeling. So I presume the idea here is that that's the foundation that Harlem is built on. So we will see it play in throughout the episodes.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back further than that with, jazz and blues and all that in Harlem as well. I mean, I'm absolutely loving this. I mean, all this new music, the playlist that we put together and put up on YouTube, really, it's so interesting. It's so great to get exposed to some of these lyrics and seeing how they work into themes or elements of the show. I find really, really, really cool. And I mean, if I can just like segue that into one of my points, it is that like the no one is untouchable and no man is a bulletproof. I think here, I want to give a huge shout out to, to Mike Coulter. I think the conflict, the battle that's kind of raging inside of him, is portrayed within those lyrics ultimately. And ultimately, we will see his moment of truth where he has to step up and become Power Man, as is kind of referenced by, Frankie Fason's Pops there, at the start of the episode. I really, think that the way Mike Coulter, has that brooding intensity of Luke Cage is really good. And for me, I just see this conflict of him wanting almost a quiet life. He's probably felt he's had enough excitement with Jessica Jones, and he's lost his bar.
The rebound chick with the shotgun to face, that was beautiful.
Yeah, shotgun to the face. Yeah, I love that reference back to that. He still gets headaches, all this kind of stuff. And he's kind of, it's like he wants to just have that step back from all of that, going on, but at the end of the day, he can't hide from what it is. And I think Mike Coulter's really captures that in the kind of the intensity of his broodingness.
I totally agree.
In this first episode really well. And I think it goes beyond that, where, he puts that onto Chico when you see Chico take the gun, come back to, Pop's barbers, take the gun for them to go off and kind of crash that exchange between Diamondback and Cottonmouth people. Well, I presume that's who they are anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not, but, where they go and steal that money.
Yeah, it is.
And I love that moment where, Chico kind of is just like, leave me alone. I'm an adult. I don't need a father. All this kind of stuff. But you can see in the same way, it's that moment where Luke Cage can see, well, he's going a different way. And I think we talked in the 101, certainly one of the things I love about Luke Cage is this notion that he could have been in a gang. He could have been a bad guy, and he takes a different route. And I think that kind of thinking that he's doing internally, I think he captures that so well on his face and how he portrays Luke Cage in this episode. So, and it all just links in with some of these excellent lyrics from the music as well. And I just think it was really spot on. It was the Cookie Monster, like, jaw drop moment, as Chris put up. Really cool, really cool.
Yeah, no, really, really enjoying my culture in this episode. Really good.
Yeah.
Like that fabulous moment where he's thinking about his wife Reva, who we now know is dead from Jessica Jones. He's thinking back on his life with her. He's kind of repeating the promise that he made to her that he'll always live his life. He'll be strong. And we have the flashback kind of scene, which I think is really well done when he's sitting in his apartment alone, kind of freaking out that he'll be dragged back into this evil side of himself by that meeting with Shades that he has, where he's reminded of a moment, in prison, I presume, where he's being told you need to reach out to other people or else you'll be driven insane. And then he looks down at the book in his hand, which is The Invisible Man, which is effectively him calling out that what he's been trying to become is the Invisible Man, but he may need to change that going forward within this future in Harlem. Really well shot scene and really well put together scene. So along with that little reference to Jessica Jones, there was a bunch of MCU connections, which I think is your first point, Chris, is it?
Slightly, yes. It's quite strange. Our listeners may know that I like my Easter eggs and I like my references, but to be fair, in this first episode, they really kind of, how do we put this? Made it very obvious in the first 15 minutes. I'm of course talking about when Luke's walking along the street. He has a street hustler with bootleg copies. To be fair, bootleg Blu-ray copies of the incident. And to be fair, and thank you, Derek, for pointing this out, because he starts talking about the big green guy, and I had no idea, and then you filled me in that there's a statue in Fenway Park, which is the baseball stadium, or is it the actual place is called the Big Green?
Yeah, it's the left field wall in Fenway Park. The baseball stadium is called the Big Green.
Listen to Europeans talk about American sports live on Defenders TV podcast.
We swear we know what this means.
I do. It's the big green monster, what takes away the runs from the opposing team. There you go. So the big green monster. I did look it up on Wikipedia, so hopefully I'm right.
Okay,
Different
answers
sport.
on the back of a postcard if we're not.
Yeah, different sport to Go Ravens.
Definitely a different sport to American football. Yes, there is no baseball team in Carolina, so I have no idea about baseball.
Go Ravens.
It's okay. They hit everyone with sticks in North Carolina in football anyway, so it's fine. I'm not saying anything about the Ravens, I swear.
Any other
things.
MCU connections, Chris, that you saw?
Yeah, there's a fair few. I think that that one I wanted to highlight because I think it was one of the actual best that we've had in a long time, especially from a Marvel Netflix. They literally came out all out and they mentioned the full range of the Avengers. I think it was the old guy with the shield.
Poor Captain America.
What did they call Iron Man again? They called him something along
That was Tony Stark.
Just Tony Stark.
Yeah.
At least they didn't add Virgin in with the old man.
That's true.
Well, hey, maybe. Look, we know in Civil War he's kind of got lucky with his Flame's niece.
Well, he got a kiss.
Yeah. Let's see. But that was, I think, one of the best I think so far that's one of the best call-outs we've seen so far. And I think potentially one of the best connections that I've seen, or callbacks, I think I should call it, is the hoodie. At the very end of the episode, he pulls up his hoodie and it's the yellow on the inside, obviously referencing his iconic yellow shirt.
Yes.
I think that's one of potentially the nicest, callback to the comics that I've seen so far. I'm sure we're going to get some kind of bracelets and tiara. It's not really a tiara that he wears.
Oh, it's a tiara.
Okay.
It's definitely a tiara, isn't it?
It is a gangster
definitely.
tiara. We're going to call
Yes,
it a
it is.
gangster tiara.
All right. Yeah, I love that this is his costume in Harlem. I was going to call it Hell's Kitchen there. That this is his costume. It's his hoodie. It makes so much sense. You know, you would not see him walking around in his Paraman costume in this universe. It's just not going to happen. So nice that they've referenced the colors and the color scheme, that this is going to be the guy in the hoodie, really. That's quite cool.
Yeah. Did I miss anything? Do you guys see anything that I'm missing?
The one that I did see is the meeting, between Mariah and Cottonmouth in the club, where there's a conversation about Kingpin, about them not wanting to be seen in the meeting because of what's happened to Kingpin and him being sent off to prison, which I thought was really cool to have that reference, that everybody's aware of it. So we know this is taking place obviously after the end of Daredevil season 1 when he's sent to prison. Not too sure how much it crosses over between Daredevil season 2 and this season. I'm presuming it's taking place around the same time. But we do know that Kingpin has been sent off to prison because of his connections, and it's been obviously seen by them, over in Harlem. So, quite cool little reference there.
I was thinking about this as we kind of watched it, and since then, I think that we're going to end up having season 2 of Daredevil is literally happening at the same time as Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. Season 1 of Jessica Jones happened after Daredevil 1 and before Luke Cage. And right. I think Iron Fist is going to land probably just after Luke Cage, or like some overlap kind of piece. And then Daredevil season 2 literally goes, say, there's a week, 2 weeks in between, and then we hit Defenders.
Right.
Similar to the MCU, the actual movie side of things, where Kevin Feige has said everything is happening time for time, in real time. In other words, the 8 years that happened between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 3, I believe, that happened in 8 years, period.
Right.
So I think I'm assuming there's going to be at least this has happened over the course of 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Now, and it's possible that effectively all of the Defenders will arrive standing over that hole for various reasons by the start of the Defenders. Were you here to investigate the hole in the middle of Hell's Kitchen? Oh, I was too. Yeah, and that's how they kick off the Defenders.
And then the giant hand comes out.
Maybe not. Is that all the connections you have to the MCU for this episode, Chris?
For this episode on the MCU. Maybe I'll have a few bits about Marvel Easter eggs in a later point, so watch this space.
Excellent. For me, one of the big points for me in this episode is the introduction to one of our new other Marvel Cinematic Universe characters. The first introduction to Misty Knight.
Absolutely.
In Harlem's...
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, in the nightclub that we have in Harlem, in Harlem's Paradise. Love this scene with her at the bar, with Luke serving her drinks. The playful banter between these two characters is just fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. I love that Luke keeps kind of slagging her off about being a bit too old. Which I'm expecting her to just reach across the bar and just smack him in the mouth, but she does another couple of smackdowns on him instead, verbally. You can tell there's a nice playful nature between the two of them. Really enjoyable. I like, Luke calling out the fact, you look like you could be one of Cottonmouth's girls, but you're a bit too old. And then she calls out the fact that the guy on stage, she likes one of his albums, and Luke says, "Oh, I can definitely tell you're old school now," But yeah, really like that. What do you think of our introduction to Simone Missick's Misty Knight?
Oh, I love it. This is one of my points as well, is Misty Knight arriving. But I think, my slant is definitely, she brings a whole lot of sassiness and sexiness. And we see this between her and Luke Cage, where it all boils over. And a bit like with Jessica Jones, it's absolutely fantastic seeing this in a Marvel TV show. Physical relationships between two adults, absolutely fantastic. And I think Simone Missick is really good as Misty Knight. I can't wait to see how her character develops. I think on our 101, we talked about her with her own detective agency, almost a bit like Jessica Jones, but here we see that she's definitely, she's a detective with the NYPD. She's a police officer, so she's not freelance or anything like that, or a PI, in the same vein as Jessica Jones, but she is a detective. And so you can see, a few additional connections here that maybe allow Misty Knight to go across several of these Marvel Netflix shows.
Very true. Yeah.
Really good. And I think with her getting it down with Luke Cage, I'm assuming she's not attached to Danny Rand at this point.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we were kind of wondering in our 101 as well, was whether, is Misty Knight going to be there in a relationship with Danny Rand like she is in the comic books? Mm-hmm. That's how Danny Rand and Luke Cage sort of get introduced through Misty Knight.
That's right.
That could still happen, but in this case, at this point in time within the timeline,
they've definitely been introduced. Yeah.
Misty Knight and Luke Cage have definitely been introduced.
Yep. So maybe it'll be the other way around.
And Danny Rand is still to be introduced to either Misty Knight, and maybe he will get introduced to Luke Cage.
Maybe that's how they'll flip it. Maybe that's, he'll come and meet Misty and Luke together,
Yeah, completely agree. Well, first thing, she has both her arms, which is great.
Of course, yeah.
We were wondering about this in our 101. So she has both arms. Fantastic. And I have to say, I am completely smitten with this actress. Smitten. And yes, I usually am not a prepubescent teenage boy when it came to this, but this has made a lot of people very happy.
You are a prepubescent boy, obviously.
I'm sorry. But
oh my God.
She embodied, this was the way that we always talk, some people, and we do as well, talk about the Marvel abs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a well-known thing.
Absolutely.
She has the Marvel abs. It's amazing.
Misty Knight is bringing sexy into Luke Cage without
definitely.
She's very
sexy.
Luke Cage is bringing sexy into Luke Cage.
Very true. What I also love is that great moment later on in the episode when Raphael Scarf, her partner, suggests that they go and meet the bartender from the place, and she goes, "Oh, that guy, I hardly even got his name. I didn't even talk to that guy." Another little nice playful moment from Misty. Really, really enjoyed her in this episode. Really looking forward to seeing more of her as we go through the series.
One of the things I really like, and I'm taking it away from that prepubescent boy, is
I
think. Thank you. I'm evolving as we record episode by episode. I think that one of the best parts is she's a strong, powerful woman. And that's the thing, we talked about this in our Agent Carter kind of run-throughs, we've talked about this in our Jessica Jones run-through, and to a degree with our Daredevil with Karen, to a degree, but Karen's character is completely different. It's the damage element, but I think with Misty, they're giving a number of things. One, they're giving a strong, confident black woman, and then they're giving just, in general, this strong, really... how do I put it? This really an amazing presence to a character who is, you can see, even with her partner, the partnership is leaning more towards Missy, who is kind of a bit more in control.
Absolutely,
definitely. Yeah. She's got amazing presence.
No, seriously, I really think that Simone Missick is in kind of, she obviously, I think she must have read the source material, because Misty in the source material is this very confident, sassy, talk back type of character.
Absolutely.
And that's what this character is. There was always an element to me of that, okay, taking it slightly too far, like with Luke Cage and the Sweet Christmas. You take it too far and it becomes comical.
Mm-hmm.
She's pulling this off in that, no, this is an everyday woman who knows her stuff. She knows she's in control. She, as that one scene in the bar kind of sets up that character fantastically.
I absolutely agree. I think that it's really funny that what Simone Missick has been saying in interviews coming up to the launch of Luke Cage is that the question she's asked most often is, when are you losing the arm? There's a lot more to Misty Knight's character in the comic book. She's a cool character. She just happens to have had that particular thing happen to her and get a new arm by Tony Stark, you know. But I love the sassy nature of the character.
Definitely.
I love her interplay with Luke Cage in the show, and Simone's bringing it. Absolutely love this
Simone's
part of the
bringing it, and Marvel and Netflix are bringing, like, strong characters. And, you know, in this case, not the lead character. I mean, just strong, supporting women characters as well.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I mean, even Mariah Dillard, you know, her relationship with Cottonmouth and just what she is bringing in terms of her nuance of being, you know, caught between crook and a politician. Some may say they're the same thing, but nonetheless, you know, walking that fine line. But really interesting dynamic for that character of
Definitely.
Mariah Dillard. Really, really good.
Yeah, a fantastic character.
So, Chris, what's your next point?
So I'm gonna talk about something, and this is the tough first point that we probably, a lot of people kind of will want to say about this show. The very first episode, they used the N-word.
Yes,
and it's harsh. This is like almost like an HBO level of harsh realism. And I did have not a concern. I think like it would have been very easy for like Netflix to kind of go, okay, well, like that word and that level of kind of realism is slightly too far.
Right.
But no, they grounded this show in a very realistic sense. The use of the N-word it shocks at the very beginning, and it makes it uncomfortable. The same way if you were walking down the street and someone shouted that, you would go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And like they even had Maya calls out that she doesn't like that word.
Yeah, I love that reaction from Ryder. I love that she instantly ignores whatever it is that Cottonmouth's saying to her, which is all about whether that he's the one in power and he's the one that's going to be able to control the city for her during her political campaign. Just ignores what he's saying and says, don't ever use that word in front of me, kind of thing. It's the right reaction, when you're using it in a show like this, you know, to have another character have the same harsh reaction that we have as viewers to it. Really good moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But also appreciate that this is about taking back that word within the community that it has been so frequently used against. And I think that's the really interesting thing. And I mean, it's like hats off to having that in, you know, effectively what people will say it is a comic book TV show. So again, I mean, you know, not to draw too many parallels with The Wire, but I mean, the same, you heard that word so much within the projects of The Wire. And again, you know, using it, again to within that community, that kind of reclaiming of the word. It's like, you know, other communities that have had abuse, and stuff at them. So absolutely, you know, props to everyone, for doing that, definitely.
Yeah, and I think this comes down to Cheo Croker. And I think that's probably where this probably comes from. I say he may have to fight a battle for this, because what he's done is by simply doing a few small things, he's grounded this show in 2016 Harlem.
Absolutely.
The use of this word, then doing some of the stuff like the calling out to the Black Lives Matter kind of situation that is going on in America today at this point in time. That is called out in the show. And then even there was a very subtle one, and it took me a second to it was very much a second viewing when I got this. There was a comment by Pops in the shop about the pacing and being in jail.
Right.
It's like, and this has been called out in other shows as well, that like you may get out of jail, but you'll always pace, because that's what they do. They're very small and close, and Luke's doing it, and then Pop calls it out. And it's by even those small details that you're able, it just grounds it a bit more. It grounds us. This is a realistic show with, unfortunately, don't think about it, but a guy who can lift up a dishwasher with one hand.
And you're right. I like how they play that as well, because in the entire episode up until the end, in the entire episode, it gives you the opportunity to get into it as a show set in Harlem with, okay, you've got a strong man who can lift up a washing machine, but there's a few guys that might be able to do that as well, that aren't superpowered. It's not really pushing the boundaries of what he can do in that particular scene. It's just kind of the old guy going for a split second, Pop's going, I like it when you do things like that, and that's kind of it, and it's left alone. And then the end of the episode is when the powers are revealed, So you could be watching this show as anybody on Netflix who's had it pop up in their face to go, this is actually a really enjoyable show set in Harlem. Oh, okay, that guy has superpowers. Okay, I can put up with that. Nobody else does, and it seems really, really realistic. So yeah, I totally get what you mean. Really good.
So John, that's my view, and let's kind of move to your next point, maybe.
Yeah, again, another amazing, actor here, Mahershala Ali, who plays Cottonmouth King, Cornell Stokes. Really loved, how he was playing Cottonmouth here. But one of the things I want to kind of ask is, obviously we have Shades come in, and he's working for Diamondback. So, we hear, and I think if I'm right, Diamondback is going to be Willis Stryker, potentially, within the show. So he is the guy who ultimately Luke Cage falls out with and ends up going to prison, after being, having the drugs planted on him. So, but that relationship to me seemed kind of uneven. What I mean by that is because Cottonmouth and Diamondback didn't meet face to face. It wasn't like Fisk going to meet Madame Gao, where he had that respect for her to deliver a message or discuss stuff with her. To affect sort of be truthful about what his plans were, because hers didn't clash with his. In comparisons to, say, the Russians within Daredevil season 1. But here, Diamondback is effectively sending his right-hand man to discuss, to protect Cottonmouth, even almost like, he doesn't trust what Cottonmouth is going to do because he's got too much ego. He's not playing it cool kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was really interesting. There were moments where I thought Shades kind of felt like he could kill Cottonmouth.
I know what you mean.
He was very threatening in how he was there and what he was kind of being sent to do. It was almost like looking out for Cottonmouth. He was the envoy of Diamondback. And so it seems that this relationship is very uneven. It's not a one-on-one at this moment in time. Might be wrong, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
He does kind of feel like the enforcer. Theo Rossi's Shades does kind of feel like the enforcer for Diamondback, that he's sending him along. He's not like his right-hand man. He's not like the Wesley from season 1 of Daredevil, being the right-hand man to Kingpin. It's like he's being sent along to make sure the Cottonmouth does exactly what he's told and doesn't step over his boundaries.
Mm.
No, 100%. I think that it's really, I have so many mixed opinions about this guy in terms of, I really think it's going to be, yeah, you're right. He is, there's more to that character, and I think there's going to be a level where I'm sure we'll get that played out.
Yeah.
He just has such an, again, we're going back to the word presence, but that introduction alone was just huge presence.
Absolutely, when he takes the shades off, when he walks into the room, yeah.
Definitely, and I think in contrast to that, Cottonmouth sort of lounging back, he's in his club. Okay, he's a very serious guy. You can see that, he's not going to suffer fools gladly, but nonetheless, he's living that dream to an extent of owning his club, being king of the castle, all that. I mean, I love, the moment where he steps in front of the picture of B.I.G. and he's got the crown over his own head. That's how he sees himself. And it's like, is it that Diamondback sees that as a weakness, that he could blurt something out, he could just get sloppy because, he's talking as though he's a baron. He owns the place when in fact, there is still the likes of Misty Knight and Raphael Scarf out there, and he can still be brought in and questioned, charged, put in prison. So like, I love this relationship, but to me it is at this moment in time a bit uneven.
Absolutely.
We don't see Diamondback dealing directly with Cottonmouth.
As the song said, as Moment of Truth said, it's lonely at the top. Whatever you do, you always got to watch around you. Yeah, so you always got to watch everybody around you. Exactly.
And I'm just going to note for anyone who's listening via this on the podcast, Derek is staring at us. Like, as he's saying, watch these guys around you, just staring at us. I'm not saying anything, but if suddenly one of us disappears over the course of recording this, you know why. Yeah. Call the police.
And okay, we're not swearing on the podcast if we can help it, but it's
Yes.
Otherwise, it is the swear tin.
Exactly.
I just want to come on the point here, John, and I actually wanted to it's actually one of my points too, less about Diamondback, more about Shades. Do we think he's powered? I'm putting it to you guys, and my evidence to date.
Okay.
When he takes off those shades.
Right.
The stare, the I don't know. We know sorry, and I'm not going to use the word obviously, because we talked about it, the Shades character in our 101, is that if this is the same portrayal as the guy in the comic books, he was in jail with Luke Cage. Do we think that Shades became powered with Luke Cage? The same experiments in Seagate?
That's really interesting because, now you mention it, it's one of those things where I know the scene you're talking about, and it's kind of, I just felt he was intimidating them, and he could still be, but it could be that he's got some power, and that's why he has to wear the shades. That's a possibility, absolutely. I hadn't thought of that, and I'm really intrigued to see whether that sort of takes place, because I know that sort of within the Luke Cage comics, Shades is one of the other prisoners, and I can't remember if there's any superpower, but that's not to say that they won't introduce that here. So, and I mean, they really do focus in on his face, like when he takes his shades off.
Exactly.
Is it just because the shades are his namesake and that's what's really important? Or is it that he can do something when he has the shades off, and that's why he generally wears them? Maybe he doesn't blink.
Yeah. Well,
it's night vision. I doubt night vision. I'd love to say night vision, but that would just be cool. No, I'm thinking some kind of telepathic kind of Professor X. Is he a human lie detector? Can he shoot fireballs? No, that's not true. But more like a lie detector, or his vision's increased, so similar to Daredevil, he can see when someone's lying based on their kind of like the pulse on the side of their forehead, or the sweat. Or we have the first potential MCU version of telepathy, where this guy can read your mind. This is why Shades is now the enforcer, because he knows when people are lying. He knows what you are saying. Completely random.
He knows when you've been bad or good.
Yeah, he's a bit like Santa Claus. Shades, Santa Claus, are they the same person?
Watch this space, listeners. This is definitely going to be a theory that might run for quite a while, I think.
Until Shades dies, this is pretty much going to run all the way.
Maybe.
Until we realise it's just he's got his eyelids glued open. But no, I think that's a really interesting point, and I think it'll be really interesting to see, who else potentially has got special powers here in Luke Cage. So, but Derek, what's your next point?
Interesting one. Yeah, my next point is another music point. Just wanted to point out the person who's performing on stage, in the club in Harlem's Paradise is Raphael Sadiq. He's a member of Tony from back in the 90s. Great R&B artist. Also a producer for many artists, including Mary J. Blige, TLC, D'Angelo. Has worked with so many of the greats. A cool idea to have him up on stage. I wonder what the set must have been like when they had some of these artists on. I know we're getting Faith Evans in a future episode, and a number of other artists that are coming up. But I'm wondering what the set was like. Was this where every member of the cast just ran down to the set to see all of these people play in the club, you know? It must have been really cool, and it's a great setup. I love his songs that they chose for the episode. They mixed them in really well. It wasn't like we were just watching a live performance. There was a lot of other good stuff going on around it with Cottonmouth and Mariah having their meeting while he was on stage, with Luke and obviously Misty having their meeting, while the music was going on. Really cool.
That was it. It was almost like, in front of a live studio audience type of thing with regards to the actual show itself. Obviously, they're within the show in front of a live audience, but the music wasn't just simply about the person being on stage and doing this as a background thing. The music that they were singing, the cuts into the band and the artists on stage were also being shaped within the story and the action going on. And that was very clever. That was really, really nice, to see. And I think something quite unique, actually.
Absolutely.
So it was really cool.
Yeah, really, really, really liking this working into the music.
So 2 points on that. One, I love the idea of that this was all the cast were running down to watch this. I'm gonna pause it on every one of these music scenes to say, there's my Coulter! Oh, there's it! And I can't wait to do that. See if we see a Charlie Cox in the background.
You never know.
The second one is, while I agree with you, I think this was really well done, and I know that we do have, like, Faith Evans. I think that's the only one I do know,
right,
because you discussed it before. But it needs to be used as in this same way, in that it can't just be, and now over to our band, and then we get like 2 minutes of some new up and coming R&B artist. It needs to be spliced with. This was unique for me in terms of I liked the music happening, but at the same time, I was getting my story elements. So, an important story elements. I
Absolutely.
think if it continues like that, then I like it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then it's like kind of the Jules Holland kind of piece. Jules Holland is a UK presenter, and he has a show.
A blues singer as well.
Yeah. And he has a show where he kind of goes, he has like 8 different live bands, and he goes, now to band number 2. And if Cottonmouth does that, it's kind of like, and now for our next guest, and he just kind of turns around, the camera pans, then no.
I like it. I know exactly what you mean. It doesn't need to be overused, but I like that it sets up the Harlem's Paradise as being the kind of place where these kind of big artists will go and play small gigs. You know, the whole idea of Prince's hit and run tours kind of thing, where he'd go and play a concert in front of 1,000 people in a small venue in a city like New York. You know, that's what it feels like. It does feel like they're using the music to show how important this club is to the local community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I like. I think that's a really good idea. But yeah, you're right. It shouldn't stop the show dead so that we can hear the brand new single from D'Angelo or something like that, you know? As long as there's other stuff going on.
Definitely.
In the scene, and as long as it's playing well, I think it adds a bit of gravitas. It's so much better than when friends used to go to a club and the scene would have music that was completely unrecognizable, and you could tell nobody in the club would dance to it at all because it was probably filmed at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know. This feels like people want to be in this location hearing the singer live, you know. I'm hoping it keeps up that kind of way of doing it for the rest of the series.
Okay, and on all that talk of music, John, do you have another point?
I do. I have Luke Cage protecting the Chinese restaurant. Genghis Khan's. Really, really good. I mean, this is something that's straight out of the comics. It's a great scene, but it puts its own spin and its own twist. It's when Connie offers to give him some money to hire him to protect their business, to protect them from thugs coming in, trying to get protection money, that he effectively says no. So it's kind of like, we're not getting a hero for hire here. Like in the comics where, you know, he suddenly realizes that he can pay his bills, he can deck out his flat and all that by hiring himself out to protect people, to fight crime, and to earn money in that way. I mean, real proper street level, but we don't get that here. It is really him saying, I still owe you money, I don't want to take your money. So at this moment in time, he doesn't want to do the hero for hire.
Absolutely.
Like, from his origin.
He doesn't want to buy that badass tiara and,
no, he
and
doesn't. But, you
Not
know,
yet.
yes.
will he be back? Will it escalate, you know, or will he eventually come back to be the hero for hire at Genghis Khan? So I really like this because it was a doffing of the cap towards the comics, like in terms of the scene, but at the same time, it didn't take it down the route of him being the hero for hire and accepting that money. It pulled back from that, and he potentially, I presume, doesn't have to do it for money, in the same way. But we'll see, how that all begins to pan out. Because obviously he works and is holding down 2 jobs at the moment. But
I think this version of Luke is that he's trying to keep under the radar. He doesn't have any money. We already see earlier on that when he meets Connie for the first time, it turns out that's his landlady. He owes her a ton of money. I like that he turns down the money because he's kind of going, well, I owe you rent. There's definitely no point in you giving me extra money from your own stash, since I haven't even paid you for the rent. But yeah, I like that idea, and I like that he kind of says to her, "You're my people. You know, you're my landlady. This is kind of where I live, so I'll always have you. I'll always have your back." You know, that idea. So while he's not a hero for hire, he will protect her if anything happens again. I like that kind of idea.
Oh god, yeah, this was one of mine. This was amazing. This is like, his exact words was, she was like, "I want to hire you," and he goes, "I'm not for hire, but you got my word, ma'am. I got you."
There you go.
And I was like, it was just an amazing, and I think, John, I think you're right, but with a slight spin in that what we've got here is the evolution of a hero.
yeah, absolutely.
This is the guy who has powers and doesn't want to use them. Like, Matt Murdock was the opposite in that he was trained from a young age. Jessica Jones, to a degree, we get some inklings that she went down that route at an earlier stage, and it just gave up on it. Whereas this Luke he doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He doesn't want to be the hero. Yeah. And I think this is what we're going to get is over time. Like, when he comes into the Chinese restaurant, Genghis Khan's, which I love that name, by the way.
It's so cool.
He just comes in like, right, I've had enough of this. No. And I think that I enjoy this. There's basically, we've gone to a point where, like, in Daredevil season 1, Matt was already playing the vigilante in the kind of the dress up. In Jessica Jones season 1, she's already got her powers and has the detective agency and went through some of the other issues with Kilgrave, etc.
Yeah.
Here we're going to a point where, yes, Luke is powered. We know very little of his background, but he wants to stay that way. He wants to just work in paradise and work in the Pop's barbershop, and that's it. Yeah. That's his life. And I think this is as I said, this is the evolution. This is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, there's even that reference from Pop that he could pay him more money if he didn't have to pay him money under the table, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, my final point is also about Genghis Khan. It's the fight in Genghis Khan.
Absolutely.
I know it was included in the trailer, but it's so much better surrounded by the rest of the show. I really love how the fight plays out. I love that the opening scene is the broken hand across his face. It's so brutal. I don't know whether that was cut in the trailer slightly. I just don't remember the bone coming out through the side of his wrist.
I think it was sped up.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I remember it, but I think it's been, because it was slowed down just to that element. It was just into that speed, I should say. Yeah. It was just looked, oh god, yeah, it looked, ouch.
Proper brutal.
Yeah, really, really good, visual effects. The bone kind of splintering and coming out, blood everywhere.
I'm presuming that Amos is not going to be famous for punching people anymore.
Well, he won't be able to punch anyone anymore. And obviously there's the Power Man wedgie through the window. Yeah, absolutely. I was like, God, it reminded me of school.
I believe that's called the Atomic Power Man wedgie. Just TC or TM, we should call it, trademarked.
Yeah, so cool. Loved it. Wedgie flip straight out the window, smash bang wallop.
Absolutely.
In fact, in fairness, it's a good job he didn't take the money, because like she'll need that Connie will need that to pay for the window.
Absolutely.
Guy face planted into one of the tables. And another guy running off in absolute fear. So fantastic.
And my absolute favorite, the catching the bullet in his hand as the trigger is pulled. You know, he doesn't need Tony Stark's equipment to catch a bullet, like Tony needed in Civil War, you know. He just puts a hand over the gun, bullet fires. There's that great moment where it's the gunpowder left in his palm with the bullet that's hit it, showing full force. He's been able to catch the bullet. That's so cool. Really, really
that's such a good bit of effect there. Just seeing the gunpowder, because it was close range and sort of the bullet crushed into his palm.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, really cool way to show the powers of Luke Cage in just one scene.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And a proper brawler as well. I mean, it is, you know, he is that, the yin and yang when I suppose Danny Rand is on the scene and the two of them are paired up. Not that we're getting that here, but I mean, you know, he's setting out a stall. He is a physical beast, and he's a puncher and he's a cruncher, and that's how Luke Cage goes about bringing some order to chaos. It's not martial art. It's not at this moment anyway. You know, it's not refined sword work. It's fists. It's not pretty all the time at the moment. It's proper Street Fighter, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fight.
Yeah, no, I have to say, I this for me was the perfect power showcase. I think it's probably the best way of putting it. In other words, they had to show everyone what Luke Cage is, and that we got that. You literally got his strength kind of shown twice. And in terms of the flip, you got his unbreakable skin twice. And it was just...
And then, the intimidation when the last guy runs out going, I didn't even like those guys. Really cool.
Yeah. No, and I just, it was just perfect for me. I think, and they're going to be able to set it up more and more now, because the believable aspect is there.
Yeah.
In other words, like, we will get these slowdowns, and I think that's some of these slowdowns may be the iconic scenes that we'll see across in terms of, so, like, with Daredevil, we had some of more kind of unique camera angles and stuff. Yeah. I think this may be, okay, well, now we've got a bit more budget behind this. Let's show the slowdown of someone impacting his hand or a crowbar across Luke Cage's head. I think that may be where we get to.
A little like all the what are they called, the fatalities in combat, where they slow them down now to see all the breaking of bones and the way they
finish him.
Yeah, I love this scene. Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
Perfect segue, because my point is the tone and the humor of behind this show.
Right.
So the ending of the fight scene. So they've just shown a very realistic, to a degree, a Marvel realistic fight. And then they had this humorous ending. And then a heartfelt ending to that after. And for me, I think this is what I talked about at the beginning of the show, kind of about the realism, the grittiness, the kind of dark undercurrents of what is happening in the world today. But they don't forget the levity. And I think that's some of the things that personally I love around comic books and fiction in general and TV shows, in that, yes, all the world is going to hell. Everything is breaking down. Harlem is in disarray. Yeah. But yeah, we don't forget the fun. We remember that. Like, and the best points for me on this was like at the very beginning, the note on Pop's barbershop wall. Did you guys notice this? It was like Muhammad Ali, Nelson Mandela, Mike Jordan, Al Pacino, and Pat Riley don't pay. Everybody else does. No credit. And
very cool.
They zoomed in on it and gave you a second or two to read it, because it's like, yeah, we're gonna have a bit of fun with this. And then it was like even going on, and I talked about how I kind of pulled back some of the Marvel notes in kind of Easter eggs, like Pop's nicknames, Power Man, Mr. Bulletproof, making levity of who Luke Cage is. And I'm hoping that Pops kind of literally says, hey, that's, like, he's gonna come up with additional kind of, like, he's gonna call out Tiara or something like that.
Right.
But
that would look great on you, Luke.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you do that. You go for that.
That tiara look great on you, Paramount.
Yeah. But I think that's one of my points in terms of the tone of this show is unique in what we've got so far in the MCU, Netflix universe, or even just the MCU, in that it's bringing together gritty realism from, say, like the Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and that kind of like this is happening in the world. This is not a nice thing, but also some of that Guardians of the Galaxy humor in terms of like I think we'll get some of these funny moments that we just kind of. It may be a chuckle or it may be a full-on laugh out loud moment, but that's what we want.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think they'll also...
They definitely need a bit of levity in the show anyway, just to kind of lighten it up a bit, because it could get very dark.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think Luke Cage anyway, has to have that levity element because his character is quite...
Very serious.
Is serious and you know, he's pretty straight down the line. What you see is what you get. Yeah. And, he's a serious guy. And he's also going through, you know, effectively, you know, he's lost his bar, he's lost his wife, and, you know, he's kind of having to be on $1 an hour type jobs, really low pay and so on. So, but yeah, you've got to have that levity and it really comes through and it really adds to it. I mean, as we've discussed that the moment in the bar between him and Misty Knight, really, really good.
Yeah.
Him in Pop's barbershop, with Frankie Faison, really, really good. But I mean, you know, do we have any predictions for Pops at all?
So, I'm torn. So, I've talked about this, okay?
Me too.
Sorry.
No,
so, like,
me too.
Yeah, because it's just like, right, we talked about they have the gritty realism and then the humor, and this is the evolution of Power Man. This is the evolution of the unbreakable Luke Cage. Every origin story from Shakespeare to Spider-Man to you name it has tragedy. And Luke's had his tragedy, but it's happened before. It's happened with Reva already. And I'm just like, so Pops is the father figure. He is the Uncle Ben right now. And I have so much fear for this guy. I'm like, it's just, they gave him great humor. They've given him great lines. They've shown him off. I want to be wrong.
Yeah.
But I have so much fear for this guy.
There's a certain air of destiny in there, isn't there?
There is a bit, isn't there?
It's
really hoping that he's going to survive out the series.
Yeah. But, like, we keep saying that.
I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Do you remember with Ruben?
Yeah.
Like, we were like, yeah, he's amazing. Oh my god.
Who's he going to turn into from the comic?
Yeah.
Tragic.
And then
Poor Ruben.
So, I don't know who, but there's going to be a major player death tragedy in this. And, like, that doesn't have to be for anyone. That can be, there may be multiple. There may be, Missy Knight's partner, the one or two of the kids in the shop. Like, we're trying to, like, you name it, someone's gonna die. One person.
Yeah, well, speaking of deaths, that kind of segues nicely into my, final point, which is the beatdown of Shamik by Cottonmouth. Like, just the move from, you know, the slapping and him, you know, him trying to degrade Shamik by saying, you know, I only slap girls and trying to get this information out from him as to where the money is or the other half of the money is in Chico. And then, you know, I think Shamik gives him some lip back and he goes, so you want to be treated like a man? And he just curls his fist and then, just the power behind it and the blood coming up. And then you see the results of that in the gutter, as Misty Knight and Raphael, Scarf are investigating this body. And
She even describes it as he looks like he's been hit by a truck with two fists. You know, that's her description.
Like, it's so intense. And again, it kind of, it shows the danger of Cottonmouth. You know, he can be like sat back. He can be in his club, laughing, joking, but down to business, steal his money and give him some lip, and he is gonna turn on the fists, and he's gonna get violent, and he's gonna get serious, and he's gonna show you who's boss. And I thought this was a really intense scene, you know, really intense. And I just thought it was another great sort of facet to Cottonmouth that Mahershala Ali had brought. It reminds me of, you know, Fisk with the car door. It reminds me of the Purple Man, Kilgrave, you know, telling someone to stand there and don't move forever. I mean, purely from a psychological point of view, you know, where there's the poor kid who's wet himself outside the club in Hell's Kitchen, all these different things. Or even, you know, the 1,000 Cuts, all these elements, have got this tone of, brutality about them. And again, I think here it carried that through, but I thought it was really, a really good part of the episode.
Definitely. I'm really, I think we've said how much we love Mahershala Ali in the show. He's been excellent. And this is a great twist for the character, you know. He's definitely not afraid to get his hands and his entire body, his face, everything dirty, in the pursuit of his money. You know, a really, really great scene. Definitely.
Yeah, no, and I think for me, that was one of my notes just in general, just that the beating of this guy and the level of blood, it really so reminds me, like, I'm wondering, like, it was so quick, I wasn't expecting it. And I'm wondering, we're like, okay, so we've talked about the humor, and we've talked about the gritty realism. There's gonna be a level of blood and guts and just about this series I'm getting.
Absolutely.
Now.
Definitely. Even with the shootout scene, where, Shamik and Chico, you know, steal the money with Dante. It's like, you know, there's bullets to the face, there's shotguns to the face. It's all pretty brutal. There's certainly no holding back. And
then turn on Dante because he threw up, you know? It's, it's pretty brutal, you know? Yeah.
And I'm wondering, even with, say, Daredevil, back to season 1, like, there was an element of, like, the breaking of bones and the gore, and then
the guy who killed himself on the fence, remember that?
Yeah.
That scene being particularly brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with Jessica Jones, we had the more cerebral kind of, I can't remember what we decided to call it, the factor with Kilgrave.
Pretty much.
But I'm quoting myself from previous season. I think there will be parts of this in this show in that they'll keep it very grounded, realistic. They'll keep the powers, they'll keep the humor. But, like, what happens in 4 episode when Luke Cage hits some guy at full strength? Like, we're gonna see a shoulder just, like, tear off and an arm go flying kind of job.
Maybe he does that to Misty.
Yeah, maybe it is how it happens. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. No, but I think that's the we're gonna get gore in this. We're gonna get, like, I think it ties back to that realistic kind of theme, Wire point. Like, HBO and The Wire and all those kind of shows, they don't shy away from, okay, if someone, you punch someone with unbreakable skin, your bones are gonna break.
Yeah.
If someone is sitting on top of you, beating you, you're gonna be covered in blood. Like, I think, do you remember in Daredevil, when the guy with the fence, they didn't show the impaling part. He just, they cut just that part away.
Yeah, not much of a cut, though.
No. But, and it's like the door scene with the Kingpin. In the first introduction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the smoothie, as I think we called it. It was just, I think with this one, like, they didn't show the guy getting beaten, but they showed the effects. And I think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I just think we're going to get lots of blood.
Yeah.
There was a lot of blackbird cordial or whatever they use in these shows to replicate blood flying all over the place.
There's going to be quite a lot to watch, definitely. It's going to be pretty brutal. Chris, is that your final point?
That was my final point, but I do have two quick notes, I should say.
Okay.
The first one, Justin Hammer weapons.
Yes, that's right.
Oh yeah, I told you I'd bring another Marvel kind of plug in here. And this actually, in theory, is more MCU. Justin Hammer, so like literally Iron Man 2. Like, we're going all that way back.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm wondering if because of what happened in Iron Man 2 where he gets sent off to prison, I wonder if all of the arms that their company was building, all of those got flooded the streets and now they're being sold around by arms dealers on the streets of Harlem and Hell's Kitchen. I'm wondering if that's the connection.
That's how Misty loses her arm. The arms dealers.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, I like
I'm not very good at jokes. I'm sorry.
It was good. I do wonder if Melvin Potter, aka Gladiator from Daredevil, may turn up with some tinkering parts from Justin Hammer, or
You never know.
like, or are we going to see Whiplash? Like, not obviously Whiplash himself, but like the actual someone's toys. Like, could it be that bullets are impervious to Luke Cage? So how do you make?
Or the other way around.
Yes, that makes slightly more sense. But I will wonder, like, are we going to see like there's an escalation of weapons? Because this is what happens.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. The escalation, it could absolutely lead to some more kind of different weapons appearing on the streets of Harlem, yeah.
And from the teaser trailer, we definitely know that someone gets whiplash.
Oh.
That is true. That is true.
That's funny. I am quite good at crap jokes.
And the final points are just the books, Attica and the Invisible Man.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see faced on them for a while, and especially the bit, the Invisible Man part. There was a kind of obviously Luke's trying to hide himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, it's interesting. Will they kind of continue with this theme? No, what would you call it? Yeah, a theme, I suppose.
A book theme.
Book theme. Yeah. But I think it's it. And then, obviously, sorry, last point. Last note. Riva's photo.
Yes.
It was lovely. The same place it was in Jessica Jones, still in there.
Right. That's right. Really, really cool touch. I like having that connection back to his history and his past. I really like that moment when he's getting that direction from his past, I suppose, about how to deal with people, where he's being told in a self-help group that he would have attended while he was in Seagate prison. He's being told you need to make friends or else you won't be able to last in here. I love how that scene was shot in his apartment. That was pretty cool. And obviously, the books, on the bed, particularly the Invisible Man, stands out as being what Luke is trying to achieve, I suppose, by hiding out in Harlem. John, do you have any notes about the episode?
It's just we do see the start of the flashbacks here. We see Luke Cage kind of go back to Seagate Prison. We see him in his orange coveralls of Seagate Prison. We see that obviously there's some kind of history there with Shades, who's played by Thea Rossi, that, whether it looks like it's some kind of fight, whether Luke is with Shades here or they're against one another, but obviously he's trying to avoid him now. So for whatever reason, that is to avoid a fight or to avoid potentially being asked to join a gang.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Again, it's one of the things, as I said earlier, that is so good about Luke Cage is that he could have become a gang member. He could have, been evil, effectively, in that sense of, good and evil in the Marvel universe. So, it was interesting seeing those flashbacks. Yeah,
absolutely. My final note, I just don't think we've talked about her enough. Alfre Woodard in this episode is one of my favorite parts of the episode. I think her character of Mariah Dillard really adds so much to the show. Really hoping to see a lot more of her as we go along throughout the season. Loved her campaign trail moment, as you mentioned, the Black Lives Matter moment when she's doing her speech to camera. Really, really good. You can totally see her point, which is the point of any politician. You're supposed to understand where they come from. I can totally see what she's trying to get across. yet there is a bit of darkness about her as well. It's effectively it's almost saying, let's ethnically cleanse Harlem back to what it was like with just black people living here. She has that strong a line about it, you know. But you can understand the point of view, you know. It's the jewel in the heart of Black America, you know. She wants to keep it the way it was historically, valid, you know. But yeah, that means we're going to want to kick a lot of people out of the city.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the children in the lineup, and you know, she's walking through, and it comes to the final kid who's white, I think, and you know, it's slightly more hands off, I suppose. But even I suppose it moves to where Luke Cage is protecting Connie and her husband. That it's seen that. You know, there are other communities that are below, you know, it's all kind of this relative space that's happening, where the effectively communities at one another. Yeah. So, really interesting kind of idea, you know, as well.
Absolutely. And couldn't have come along at a better time, really, I suppose.
No, and I think you're right. That scene where there was that kind of shaking all the kids' hands, and then she takes hand sanitizer after, and you don't know whether it's because she's shaking a load of kids' hands or that she's just touched this Caucasian kid.
Yeah.
And I do think that potentially they're going to touch on some very harsh racism kind of topics, and I think that's good. It's a unique take that like America's probably hasn't seen before, and like this is, as I said, this is harsh. This is going to be pretty realistic. They're gonna touch on some things that people are going to go, oh, that's too close to the bone. Let's not talk about that.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, I know that President Obama has said if he wanted to give one piece of advice to his younger self before he came into office, the one piece of advice he would have given is you need a lot of hand sanitizer for your years in office, if you want to keep healthy. So maybe it's just a little reference to that. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's just played that way where you don't really know why she's doing it at that particular point at the end of shaking all those kids' hands. Really cool though. I really loved seeing Alfre Woodard in the show. I knew she was going to be good. I've loved her in other stuff. Very different character, obviously, than her character in Civil War. It is a completely different character, and I'm sure we're going to see loads more of her throughout the series. Well, guys, I think we've come to our own moment of truth. It's time to see whether we defend the episode. Chris, do you defend Luke Cage Season 1, Episode 1, Moment of Truth?
I have to say, like, this is up there for me in terms of, like, it based on this one episode, on the opening of what this is, based on the realism, based on everything about this opening, this premiere, it's really struck a chord with me. I don't know what it is that maybe it's because we've already had 2 seasons of Daredevil or kind of 1 season of Jessica Jones. For me, this is up there in terms of the top pilot Episode 1 of all MCU Netflix.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to say it's like a 5 out of 5. Like there's some bits in there that will potentially need to be worked on, or just like it was just overall. But this is the strongest opening we've got.
Right.
It's telling you, it's set the scene, it's told you the story, it's giving you the background. They've made us question a lot of certain things, either through actual plot device, through the actual script, or even just through a lingering camera shot. Like they've made you question where this show is going. Of course, it's Marvel, it's Netflix, so I'm jumping for joy that we've got another 12 episodes or 13 episode series to devour, one at a time because of our illustrious leader.
Plus podcasting in between. Don't forget,
yes.
You don't get to watch them just one at a time. There is podcasting in between too.
Yeah, that's even better. But no, again, it's Marvel time. I get to go and geek out and find all the Easter eggs. But honestly, kind of hand on my heart, this is up there in my top 1 or 2 I'm going to go say this in my top 2. Personally, that now interchangeable between Episode 1 of Jessica Jones and Episode 1 of Luke Cage. And then directly after that is Daredevil.
High praise.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, John, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
I do defend this episode of Luke Cage. I'm giving this 4 Genghis Khanis out of 5.
Nice.
I think, like you say, it's a really good introduction, and background, but I mean, I love the gradual build. This really sets up Harlem. It sets up Luke Cage. It sets up the society and the community. It's got the politics of Mariah Dillard. It's got the gangs of Cornell Stokes and Diamondback, all this society and the melting pot that is Harlem in flux, and it's a real gradual build. You've got the sexiness of Misty Knight. You've got the police and detective and investigation from Misty Knight and Raphael. All of this, I think this gradual build up. Some people might say that it's slow. I think this is a gradual build up. This is taking something a part of New York City in Harlem that hasn't been in the previous Netflix shows. So you've got to introduce that. You've been briefly introduced to Luke Cage, but it's from Jessica Jones. So this is his show, his relationships, his area of New York, and it has to be set up, and they did this so well. And then finally, just the strength of acting from Mike Coulter as Luke Cage. I really, really enjoyed his take. I loved his battle, his internal battle and conflict, but again, all backed up with equally strong supporting and lead acting going on from Mahershala Ali, from Alfre Woodard, from Simone Missick,
Absolutely.
All, and Frankie Faison in the show. So absolutely defend this episode of Luke Cage. Derek, par chance, do you defend this episode of Luke Cage?
Well, always when I'm going last, you guys have taken all the words out of my mouth. I totally defend this episode. Just absolutely looking forward to watching the next 12 episodes. A great setup episode, great introduction to brand new characters in the Marvel Universe. So excited to see this version of Misty Knight. Simone Missick's doing a great job in here. Really looking forward to seeing more of Alfre Woodard, more of Mahershala Ali's Cottonmouth. Just so much of this universe to explore, and we've got 12 more hours to do it. It makes me really excited. While I don't think that it's as awesome an opening as Jessica Jones, that did have the benefit of a huge cliffhanger at the end of the episode. This had a great uprising moment at the end of this episode where we finally got to see Luke go out and be a hero for a couple of minutes at the end of the episode. We didn't get that in Jessica Jones. We got her turning on her heels and realizing she's going to stay in Hell's Kitchen. And I thought that was a bigger, more dramatic opening, I suppose, than this one. While I loved this episode, I think Jessica Jones' first episode probably a little bit better than that, but there's no problems with that. We've still got another 12 hours to spend with these cats. And I'm looking forward to it, definitely. So guys, that's the end of our review of Season 1, Episode 1 of Luke Cage. Only one more thing to do in this episode, which is to give out the prize for our Doctor Strange Summer of Strange. What we asked our listeners to do who are joining us during our coverage of the 1978 Doctor Strange movie, or Doctor Strange 101, and the Doctor Strange animated movie, all leading to Doctor Strange coming out on October 25th. What we asked them to do is just leave us a review over on iTunes, send us an email to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, just telling us where they left the review. And we got some very, very nice reviews into us during our little hiatus there. I want to say a huge thank you to the listeners that have left us those reviews.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the reviews, and for the support. Reviews, on iTunes, on any other podcast catcher, really help independent podcasts such as ourselves to get noticed within those apps, within those programs, and for people to explore and find us and be able to listen to us. So it's very much appreciated. All the reviews left by all you very kind people.
Yeah, no, and I there's not much more I can say on that. Okay. So I was chopping onions while I was reading the reviews, I swear, and that's why there was a bit sniffle happening. That or it was my allergies. So yeah, you know, it's that type of time of year, the allergies kick in. But honestly, I was overwhelmed. Derek sent them across to me, and as I read through them, I was shocked by the feedback we got. It's fantastic, just even for us as podcasters. Like, we are three very geeky, nerdy guys, and we just ramble for sometimes an hour and 20 minutes or more.
And I edited it down to about 40.
Yeah, of course. You should see the uncut versions. But it's us talking and saying what we love about the show. And then even when we talk to you guys in the community, like we are all joined by this love of Marvel, love of these shows. And yeah, this is a geeky thing. We break down someone's amazing work. But just the fact that you guys love it, or at least give it 5 stars, is, it's an testament to what we do. And the only thing I can say is thank you.
Absolutely.
I swear, it's the allergies. It's the allergies.
Don't cry. No, absolutely, and some lovely words left by everybody. Just a huge thank you if you take the time out.
It doesn't have to stop now. You can keep giving us reviews. As John said, this helps other people find us. So share it. If you think one of your friends might like one of our comments, or like some of the breakdowns, or if they've seen some Easter eggs that I missed, because especially if they've seen Easter eggs I've missed, send them over. Like, share our content with them, because the more people that join our group, that the more we can talk, the more we can take over your Facebook feed and your Twitter feed, where basically for the next month, all you're going to see is Luke Cage, and that's what you want. You know it is. But honestly, thank you, and please continue to share.
Absolutely, yep. Share it through any of your social media channels, obviously over on Twitter and Facebook, over on Reddit, wherever you interact. You can share our podcasts with anybody else. Right. Okay. Without further ado, time to give out our Summer of Strange prize. It's Thursday the 29th of September, and John has the hat in hand with all the reviews that we got over on iTunes. Thanks again so much for all your entries for the Doctor Strange prize draw.
Absolutely, a really good response, and they're all in the hat. In fact, they're in a Doctor Strange hat, my Doctor Strange hat.
Yes. Not the one
that is actually the prize, I can assure you. And I will now give it a good old shake. PricewaterhouseCoopers is obviously here to verify the results from the sealed envelope.
Do I get to pick this one?
You do. Go on.
Awesome.
Hand in.
Awesome. Okay. And the winner is Frederik Tellerup from Denmark.
Congratulations, Frederik.
Well done, Frederik. Thank you very much for your review. I'm going to read it out since he won the competition.
Yeah.
Right? So he started off with a fun and enlightening supplement to all things MCU and MTU. Nice. An interesting podcast build-up, like a friendly conversation, primarily about the Netflix TV series episodes, with great enthusiasm and in-depth references to the Marvel comics that span the characters, and to a more or lesser extent, sat down with the storyline beats. Thanks, guys. A very nice addition to watching the shows, and kudos to you for keeping spoiler-free on all episodes for your episode-to-episode walkthrough in these bountiful times of Netflix binge watching possibilities. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you, Frederik. And of course, thank you everyone else who were really kind and generous to leave a review. It is much appreciated. It is one of the best ways for independent podcasts to kind of get their name out there and for other people to find it. So, that's why we kind of hold the competition. And it's really important. So thank you to everyone who took part. It is much appreciated, and congratulations to Frederik.
And now back to old Chris, Derek and John.
So right, back to the podcast. Big congratulations. We'll have the prizes sent off, as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
We'll be in touch to get your, delivery address and all that, but really big congratulations.
You're lucky it's going now, because literally if some of these prizes had stayed, like, I'm saying like 48 hours more, there was some, it fell off the back of the truck.
There was a point I thought that John was just buying presents for himself, leaving reviews in different people's names, but I know where these reviews are left. So, thank you so much for that. Guys, that's it. Time to close out. We'll be back on Tuesday the 4th of October with our review of Luke Cage Season 1, Episode 2, Code of the Streets. Looking forward to that one.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, you can join us on Twitter at DefendersCast. Join our group over on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. Get involved in the discussion, join the community, leave feedback. You can also do that by email at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. You can go onto the website and leave a voicemail if you want to have your lovely dulcet tones on our podcast, and you can leave 90 seconds of audio.
Absolutely. We love voicemails. We don't get them often enough. It's really, really easy. Go try it out on the website.
Yep. Ask some questions, give your theories, comment on the show, comment on the podcast, and we will bring these into our discussions of Luke Cage Season 1 as we move through the 13 episode series.
Absolutely, but just one reminder, if you've watched the entire season of Luke Cage and you're just listening back to our podcast, remember we have not watched ahead as we're recording these episodes, so if you're saying anything about episode 9 or a big reveal in episode 12, just make sure you mark your email or your voicemail with what episode it is you're talking about so we can hold off on it and none of us get spoiled about the future episodes as we go.
Absolutely. And on Facebook, we will make sure we will have episode by episode places where you can comment and you can be as spoilerific as you wish. We will know not to go into that. But please come and join the community, the discussions, thank you so much for listening. We will speak with you next time. Bye.
Okay. See you guys. Call me if the hand comes. You know the hand is coming out of the hole, I swear.
Excellent. We'll speak to you on Tuesday.
Bye.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
You have been listening to Defenders TV Podcast, a production of TV Podcast Industries. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, please go to www.defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes and subscribe there, leave a review, or alternatively go to any other good podcast catcher and search Defenders TV Podcast for Android users. Leave a review, subscribe. This really helps independent podcasts to be found out by other interested listeners. Also share our podcast updates on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, or any other social media platform. You can also join us on Twitter at DefendersCast. You can join us on Facebook, join our group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. Come and join the community, enter into the discussion, leave comments and feedback. If you want to get involved in the podcast, you can leave feedback at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, or alternatively, you can leave a voicemail on our website at www.defenderstvpodcast.com. 90 seconds long and be an audio part of our podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening and we will speak to you again soon.